welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah and today I thought we could have a bit of a chat about books. So I'm going to give you kind of like a little brief overview of my relationship with books and my relationship with reading and how it has changed over the years. So I am now in my 30s and I haven't read books for a very long time. By the way, before I get started, make sure you've got a beverage of some sort. I have got a cup of coffee here and a squash in my new fancy cup, which I am loving, by the way. This is from Tesco, because we're going to have quite a long chat, I think, about books. I really got back into reading recently from a very long break. So I'm actually a English literature and creative writing graduate, and going to uni and studying books and learning how to write books properly and getting all of that information kind of put me off of reading, which is really sad. And it's put me off of reading for a long time. Now, don't get me wrong, it's been a long time since I've graduated and I have read some books within this time frame. However, I have never really got back into reading regularly, reading books fairly quickly, until recently, until I would say the last 6 months to a year. And I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts on this kind of process of what I'm finding myself enjoying reading, because I've had to kind of rediscover my love of reading, and the things that I enjoy reading have completely changed. And I think that is due to my relationship changing with reading and my my life changing as I've got older, basically. So yeah, get yourself a drink of some sort and let's get chatting. So one thing that I love to do anyway, regardless of reading or not, is visit charity shops. And I just think that you can find the most beautiful treasures in charity shops. And obviously a lot of the time they don't cost a lot of money, but I just love finding stuff that you couldn't really find anywhere else, or you wouldn't necessarily find anywhere else. And that's the same with reading for me. And I have always kind of used charity shops as a gateway into reading, if you will. I just love browsing the shelves because you find such an eclectic mix, such a different mix of different books. You obviously get, when people donate to a charity shop, you kind of get a little slice of their personality, and obviously a charity shop is a combination of all these different people's bookshelves. So it's just a really nice way to find books that you wouldn't have necessarily found from browsing on Amazon or going into your local bookstore, anything like that. I really enjoy it. I just find it such a magical way of finding books, and obviously you can do so while saving a bit of money as well. So if you didn't know, I am from the Cotswolds in the UK. I live in a very rural place, and a lot of the villages around here have converted the old red telephone boxes into book exchanges, which is just so beautiful, so glorious, especially at this time of year going into the spring and summer. So lovely to go for a walk and see a book exchange, have a little nosy in, see if there's anything you fancy, and they just ask that if you take a book that you pop a different one in there, and that is what I always do as well. And that is why I don't have many books here to show you, because even if I buy a book new, unless I desperately want to keep it, like if it's a reference book or something, I do tend to give it away. I do tend to put it in the exchange, because there are people who wouldn't necessarily get out to go to the shops around here, or there are people who don't want to spend an awful lot of money but still want to read. And I really do think it's so important for people to read. My daughter loves to read as well, and I think she has definitely got that from me. Even though, you know, over the years she hasn't seen me sitting and reading very much, we love sitting and reading her books together, and I think she has really picked up on that, and it's something that I will continue to encourage. So how has my reading preferences changed over the last 10 years or more? So before I went to uni, I used to literally read the classics. I would read Mary Shelley. I bought, actually, I will always remember this, I bought a complete works of Shakespeare from a charity shop for 20 pence, and it was this really big old book. It was a hardback, and I used to read that and fall asleep. I used to just devour Shakespeare in my spare time. I remember getting hit around the face with it when I would be falling asleep in bed reading it. I loved it, and I still do. I still love those books, but I do not read them for pleasure anymore. I just find them too hard going when, you know, when you work, and when, especially when you have children. At least for me, I have found myself going towards books that are just a bit more light-hearted, and you will see when I share the books that I've been reading with you, I have been sort of going between really light-hearted books and then other books that have a little bit more depth to them, a little bit more of a storyline to them, but still fairly light-hearted and easy to read. And that is what I have kind of gotten into. I've gotten into romances, which I never thought I would be a romance reader, but I'm really enjoying them. And just some cute reads. I love a good bit of chick lit. I always have, but even more so now. The first book that I really got into was last summer when I went on a hen party up north. So I went to Chester for a hen party, and it was great fun. But I actually went up there on the train. I very rarely travel by public transport. I usually drive myself everywhere, again from living in the countryside. However, I decided to go up on the train because obviously there'd be drinking involved, and it was just easier all round if I went on the train and just enjoyed chilling out on the way up. And I had a great time on the train with this next book. I had started it before I left and I was already hooked on it, and I sat there from Cheltenham station to Chester pretty much just reading this next book. I don't actually have the book with me to show you because I have exchanged it, like I was telling you about earlier. However, I have got another one in the series to show you, which is very similar style. So the title of the book that I'm talking about is Meet Me in Hawaii by Georgia Toffolo, and it's part of the Mills and Boon series. Obviously, if you know Georgia Toffolo, you know her as Toff from, I think, Made in Chelsea. I've never watched it, don't judge me. And I didn't expect that book to be any good, in all honesty. I feel terrible saying that, but I saw Georgia Toffolo on it and I thought, oh, I don't know about that, but I was intrigued, so I bought it. So I bought it from the Works, is, I think it's 3 for £6. If you didn't know, the Works is a cheap book and stationery store in the UK. So I will show you this one, and the front cover of the Meet Me in Hawaii one is very similar. So my nan actually used to read the Mills and Boon series, and I used to think that she was such a sad case for reading them. And my very first Mills and Boon book was Meet Me in Hawaii, and I was just hooked on it. I loved it. The cover is it's like a yellow and orange, like sunset kind of vibe with water on the front, and it was just gorgeous, and it made me want to pick it up and read it, and I did, and I loved it instantly. Now this one is called Meet Me in London, and I believe it is set around Christmas, so I didn't get around to reading this last Christmas, but I'm definitely going to read that this Christmas. But that's why I still have hold of this one but don't have hold of the Meet Me in Hawaii book. But I loved it. It was such a light-hearted, cute read, and it was quite well written as well. Like I said, I have read books since the last 10 years and everything, but I have not devoured a book in a week or in a few days for a very long time, and that is the first book that I just couldn't stop reading. I couldn't put it down. I enjoyed reading it on the train to that hen party and back again, and in the evening on the first night that I got there I read a little bit as well. And I just loved it. It was so light-hearted and so fun. But I think the reason why I really loved it is because of the setting in Hawaii. And I am an ocean lover. I love the ocean. I love everything about the ocean. And just the way it was described and the imagery that's used in the book just made it seem like so beautiful. And I think I really grasped onto that, especially because I read it in the summer. I think it was June or July, I think it was early July actually, that I read it, and it was just perfect. It was the perfect book to be reading at the time that I read it. And sometimes these, you know, these things happen, these things just line up, and that was just the perfect book for me to pick up at that time. And it was gorgeous. It was just a beautiful, cute read. You know, you could see it coming. It wasn't like it was this crazy thing that you didn't see coming, but it was just a really nice read, and I would really suggest picking that up if you are going on holiday this year, if you have a bit of time spare through the summer this year, even if it's just reading it in your back garden with the sun shining. I just think it's a beautiful, beautiful read. And yeah, it was the first book that really got me back into reading. And the next book that I'm going to talk to you about is called, let me just refer to my notes because it's a slightly longer title, it's called Summer Love, the Cornish Village School. And this one I read fairly quickly as well, however it wasn't my favourite. So it was a really, really cute read up until a certain point. And again, I think I kind of liked it at the start because, again, it's around by the sea. I was reading it through the summer, and it was a really nice read during that time. And I love doing that. I love lining up the time of the year to the time of the year that I'm reading in books. I just find it just makes it, the whole experience, a little bit more enjoyable. And like I said to you, I do love the ocean, and it was set fairly close to the seaside, and it was just, you know, a summer love story basically. However, there were quite a lot of typos through that book, and that bothers me as someone who really cares about grammar, about spelling and all these things. If you find one or two mistakes within a published book, I don't think that that's a problem. I think, you know, mistakes happen, whatever. However, this book was littered with them. It was throughout the entire book. There were quite obvious errors throughout it. I don't know if it's self-published or what. I can't remember, to be honest with you, but that was one thing that really put me off, because it breaks my stride of reading. If when I read something and it doesn't make sense or it isn't correct, I come out of the world for a second and I go, oh, that's not right. What does that mean? And as soon as those thoughts come into my brain, I'm outside of the world and the escapism has been lost. And that's a real shame. Well-written books that have been properly checked over, and if, you know, if that thing doesn't bother you and if you can just carry on reading and make sense of it, then that's fine. But for me, I love every moment of reading. I want to really enjoy the process, and when I find mistakes throughout the book like that, it ruins the fun for me a little bit. But the story was fairly well written until towards the end of the book, and it just felt like the whole way through the book we had been going at a certain pace, and then at the very, very end there was a really bizarre scene, which if you have read this book you will probably agree with me, I would like to think. So like a really bizarre scene at the end, and you think, wow, is that how this book's going to finish? And it did, and it was just really, really cringy. I hated it, to be honest with you. That specific part of that book, I hated it, and it was a real shame because I thought it was a really good book besides the issues with the spelling and everything throughout. However, it did kind of ruin it for me, especially with it being the end of the book. That's the bit that you remember, and for me it did kind of ruin the rest of the book. But I did enjoy I can't remember how many pages it was. I did enjoy like 200 or 300 pages of it, but it just felt rushed. It felt like a really bizarre thing that had just been thought up and hadn't really been thought through properly, and didn't feel like the characters would have behaved that way. And it just felt like you could tell that there was a deadline to get this book out, and it just, any ending would do, or at least that's the impression that I got from it. So if that's not the case, then that's quite sad. But it wasn't my favourite. Like I said, it was good up until a certain point, but again, it's probably worth a read if you are just looking for some little cutesy books. However, it is not on the top of my recommendation list. And that Summer Love book was found from a charity shop, and the next book that I'm going to talk to you about I do still have here, and that was from the same charity shop journey that I took. So let's get on to the next one. Trisha Ashley. I've read several of Trisha Ashley's books and I love them. They are well written, they are cute, they are usually romancy. However, they do tend to have a larger plot going on, and this one is no exception to that. So this is the Little Teashop of Lost and Found, and I really enjoyed this. I just love it. I love anything that's baking related. I love baking myself. I don't do it nearly enough, to be honest with you. I am constantly trying to lose weight, and I do not want to be baking stuff and having loads of treats lying around the house, so I try my best not to bake too much. However, I love baking. I love the relaxation of it. I love the making of beautiful cakes. I love nothing more than going past a patisserie and seeing all of the really intricate, beautiful cakes. And you really get a feel of that kind of style when you read this book. I loved this. Like I said, this has got enough of a plot without just being a romance or without just being a cute book. This is a little bit darker, I would say, for a book like this. It's not dark, but it has some quite serious matters that it touches on. And the very start of this book, when I started reading it, I thought, oh my goodness, like looking at the front cover, I did not expect this book to be so serious. And at the very start, it is quite sad, and you see someone who hasn't had the best start to life and how they cope and what they do. And then basically she goes off and starts her own tea shop, and she kind of works out who she is and finds her own way in life, which she hasn't really done before. And it's just a really nice read. I loved this all the way through, actually. And there is also a bit of a twist in the middle, which I personally didn't expect. There was a point where I thought I had cottoned onto the twist, and I had, but not quite. I didn't get it quite right. And yeah, I just loved this book. I would seriously recommend this book now, spring, summertime, or any time, to be honest with you. It's just a really nice read. It's fairly long for like a cutie book. It's, let's see, it's like 450 pages long, but it's really nice. It didn't take me long at all to read through this, and I am a slow reader, by the way. I love to really enjoy the moment when I'm reading books. I love to think about the imagery and how I would visualize characters and that kind of thing. I really like to take my time, and I read through this fairly quickly, so I think that says a lot. I would really recommend that. I'm just going to check my notes to make sure I haven't forgotten anything I wanted to say. There is. So at the end of this book, which is why I still have it, by the way, there are recipes, and the recipes are cakes that are mentioned throughout the book, and I love that. I think that's something that Trisha Ashley does. But one of the cakes that is named throughout this book are Fat Rascals, and I have never heard of a Fat Rascal in my life, but they sound fabulous. Kind of a different kind of a scone, I believe, but I really want to keep these recipes, which is why I've still got hold of this book. I think I'm going to take pictures of the recipes, to be honest with you, and save them in my phone, and then take this book to one of our local book exchanges. But let me just show you in the back. There's this recipe section, and it is just so cute. I love it, and I just love that whole encompassing world where you can make these things from within these books and feel like you're part of the story in a way. I think it just brings part of the story out and into your daily life, which I just think is just a really cute touch. And yeah, really recommend this book. Really well written all the way through, goes at a certain pace and doesn't really change. And like I say, it's got enough of a subject matter to keep you interested and keep you wondering what's going to happen, and also enough depth to really stay with you for a little while. I think you can learn from the characters, and you can really understand why characters behave in a certain way with this book, and I think that's really important. I've changed positions slightly because my foot is going to sleep, but the next book that I'm going to talk to you about is called Half a World Away by Gayle, and that is a book that I haven't read that kind of a book before. It's a very different style for me to read. It's less chick lit, although it kind of, I think, still does fall into that category, and I really enjoyed it. I don't have that book to show you. My mum's actually currently reading it before she takes it to her local book exchange, because again, that is something that we love to do, and I love to kind of spread the books out around a large area so that more people can get hold of them. My mum's actually reading it at the moment, and then we will pop it in the book exchange near her house, because we like to do that as well. We like to spread them about a bit so that not all of the books that we read go in the same place, because we have noticed that there's obviously a few people that place these books into there and it's all roughly the same kind of book, so we try and mix it up a little bit. So yeah, I really enjoyed that book. It is something, like I said, that's a little bit different for me. It's a book about two people who are brother and sister, and they have a really bad start in their life and they end up going separate ways. They basically go into care and they are separated. So it's a really sad story, but they both live very different lives and they grow up separately in the same city, and they have completely different experiences of the city, which is London. And yeah, they have, one of them is kind of someone who's always struggled and had to fend for themselves, and then the other one, who got sort of adopted by a slightly better family, have not a better family, a slightly higher end academic kind of family, so someone who has more money, and they kind of have a lot more experiences in life and they get to enjoy more things and see the more enjoyable side of life, I guess. And then when they eventually meet, those two worlds kind of come together, and it's about relationships and about how you form different relationships. You get to see the book from both of their perspectives, and you really get to understand how they both think and why they both have this different opinion. And I think that it's written really beautifully in that you can really understand where both of them are coming from, because you get to see their experiences through their eyes as well. And there is a teeny tiny little bit of like romance in there, but it's not like a romance book. It's more about one of their love lives really, and the struggles of it. But it's a really sweet book, and I would really recommend that book to anyone, to be honest. It's a little less light-hearted and a little bit more depth to it. However, it's not so difficult to read that it would put you off. It's just a really beautiful subject matter, and it does get you thinking. So yeah, I'd really recommend reading that one. I got that one from the works as well on a 3 for £6 deal. I think anyone can pick that book up and enjoy it if you like reading, so would really recommend that. But that's one that isn't really set at any specific time of year, and it's just a really good read to read sort of any time. So I guess in a way it would be quite a good book to gift another person as well, because I do think that a lot of different people would enjoy reading that one if they enjoy reading. And it's not like, you know, sometimes I will buy a friend a Christmas themed book for Christmas, and I think that that book would fit into any gift at any time of year. But that is all of the books that I wanted to talk to you about for now. Like I said, I have just got back into reading and reading more. I have read more books in the last 6 months to a year than I have read in the last 10 to 15 years. It's bringing me so much joy at the moment, and I started to get into it when I kind of started to struggle a little bit with my job, and it really gave me an escape, and it gave me just a different world to escape into. It gave me that relaxation time. I'm pretty sure, been struggling a little bit with anxiety, and it has really helped me read before bed and reading when I have the spare time, reading on my lunch break at work. It's really helped me to calm myself down and to give my brain a bit of a distraction as well. And I just love reading. It's just such a special thing that gives you access to all these different worlds, and it's something that I am really excited to get back into, and I can't wait to share more books with you again. I don't know how often these videos will be going out on my channel, but I do want to continue doing them, and I really want to share with you the way in which that I pick books and find books, and maybe I can take you to a few charity shops, I can take you to the book exchanges, and we can go through, you know, what kind of things that I find there in my local book exchanges. And I think that would be a really cute video as well. Let me know if you'd like to see that. Let me know if you enjoyed this one by liking and subscribing, and also commenting. I'm trying out a few different types of videos at the moment, and I'm really trying to gauge which ones are the preference and which ones my audience like the most, so I know which ones I should be filming more of in the future. So do let me know, do like and subscribe and comment, and I will see you again very soon in another one. Thank you so much for watching.